Good morning. Um, Hi guys. Welcome in, Jade. Thanks for congratulations on getting first. Um, you're at, the 15-day streak. Yippee, let's go. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so, okay. Hi, Rain. Welcome in. How's it going? Um, yeah. So today is, we're continuing Cradle, and I was kind of thinking, congratulations on second reign. I was kind of thinking we could add something in the background a little bit, just so it's kind of not me just sitting here for a couple hours reading a book. But I wasn't sure what to do. I was thinking maybe just trying another uh unfair flips run, but I have something going on at like 1 p.m. Thanks for the lurk, Rain. I hope you enjoy. Um, I have something going on this afternoon, and I don't have enough time to uh validly take a 30-minute break from it. I don't think it's in the rules that I can take that long of a break. Let's see. Nope, not multi-instance. All endings show rules. Uh, Breaks. Due to the length of the run, short breaks to use the bathroom, make a snack are allowed and subtracted. Since every person has different needs, the allowed length of the number of breaks per run is unspecified on purpose. However, if the moderators feel that this accessibility rule is abused, the break time will not be subtracted from the total run time. Yeah. So I don't know if I will do another attempt at that today, just because I have less than 4 hours until the thing that I have to do. So I have to end stream like 30 minutes before and then get going. So I will probably not do unfair flips. But if anyone has any ideas for like some sort of AFK thing that I can do while reading, that would be really good. But if not, if you give me just a second, I will start reading. I just need to do a couple quick things. Okay. Thanks for the 7-day streak, Rain. That's awesome. I hope you enjoy your lurk. Thank you for lurking, Jade. I hope you enjoy. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. How to do one more of my gamma before you like? Yeah, no problem, no problem. I hope you enjoy. Why isn't it? Oh, it's because I'm not sharing my activity. There we go. Hi, Jess. Welcome in. How's it going? How's your morning so far? Hold on, let me do. You just woke up? That's understandable. Well, good morning. Um, just have a little bit more to do. How's your week off of work going, by the way? Where's it? Oh, it's going good? That's awesome. Glad to hear it. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm gonna lurk while I wake up. Okie doke. I hope you enjoy the book while you're lurking. I know you weren't here to really hear it before, but I hope it's interesting either way. Um, okay, I think I've gotten everything that I need done, and yeah, I think so. Okay, okay. Well, I'm going to start reading. And like I said a second ago, if anyone has any ideas on what to put in the background, I will gladly put something in the background just so that way it's not just me sitting here for a couple hours just reading a book. I mean, unless you guys just want that, then that's fine. But some people might just get bored of that. I don't know. Um, should I add Spotify to the background, or would that go over my voice, do you think? Actually, I won't do it for now. No, but, um, yeah, I won't do it for now. Hmm. Okie doke. Well, let's do this. Let me take a quick drink. Okay, doke. Chapter 5. While it violated clan decree for Lyndon to follow a path, it was technically allowed for him to study technique manuals. After all, he couldn't actually use the techniques without Madra of a compatible aspect, which he couldn't harvest. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Learning a technique outside of a path was like tearing a branch off of a tree and expecting it to bear fruit. But this one didn't need any particular aspect, nor did it require him to be of copper level. He turned the first yellowing page, expectation transforming into hopeful excitement. I leave this manual out of obligation. Any technique deserves to be studied and remembered, in the hope that it may someday spark greater inspiration. Even such a dim spark as this one may one day strike a great flame. Not again. The impetus for this technique comes from a long-time rival of mine, a deceitful and cowardly man whose name I will not honor by repeating it here. I bear the great shame of sharing a clan with this man, and thus we have challenged each other many times since our youth. They say that a good rival sharpens a warrior as a stone sharpens iron, but not my deficient opponent. I defeated him handily each time, and had no reason to grow in strength or skill. He was a pathetic match. But some scrap of talent must have remained in him, for he developed an underhanded technique that he christened the empty palm. I will not lower myself to attempt the technique on my own, but as I understand the theory, he focuses neutral madra into a simple palm thrust. How he cancels out the aspects of his spirit, I have not yet deduced, but the result is undeniable. When his empty palm makes contact with my core, his madra disrupts my own. For a few seconds, I am as powerless as a wretched unsouled. Even more so, perhaps, as I can hardly muster the energy to control my own limbs. I tried a series of techniques to defeat him, but each time he managed to land a single empty palm upon my core. Even such as he, with his lack of talent, can lean upon a technique as a crutch. It is thus in desperation that I have developed this defense, and at last rightfully triumphed over him. Should he pass down his empty palm, I can rest at ease, knowing that my future disciples reading this manual may oppose his legacy. Heart of Twin Stars is utterly simple in its concept. You must divide your core in two. Thus, even when one core is disabled through some device such as my rival's, you have a second to rely upon. The observant reader will notice that this does not increase the power available to you. Splitting one's core is a painful process prone to many risks, though it is mercifully quick. If attacks such as the empty palm ever become commonplace, I wish to leave behind this defense. Here, at last, I leave a record of my journey to split my core, in exacting detail. Be sure to follow my path to the very step, lest you suffer a crippling injury from which you cannot recover. Okay. Man, my throat today. Useless. The Heart of Twin Stars was an utterly useless technique, which doubtless explained why no one practiced it. Even if he wanted to split his core in two, Waymon Airy wouldn't have any techniques like the empty palm. He would just be as defenseless as before. The book did include a cycling technique, which would at least work better than his own pathetic foundation method. But he wouldn't see any benefit before the duel. Besides, the cycling technique was designed to prepare him to split his core, which he never intended to do. The heart of twin stars wouldn't even make up for his broken arm, which, even with his mother's scripts, could never heal before he had to fight. Ooh, good night, Pops. His enthusiasm had dimmed, but not died entirely. The technique manual had given him a few other ideas he could try, and maybe a new search tomorrow would reveal more promising results. After locking up the archive, leaving the eighth elder drunk on the roof again, perfectly visible, he returned home, cycling his madra according to his new technique. His nerves kept him at it until dawn, and he would have continued except for a brutal hammering at his door. Get ready, Kelsa told him, dressed in the orange trade silk training clothes of a copper ruler. Her copper badge, marked with a scepter, hung proudly in the center of her chest. You're training with me today. Lyndon brought his pack to the She family gardens, surrounded by Blue Mountain roses and tiny clusters of cloudbell, and knelt across from his sister. They faced each other over a stretch of grass. Ordinarily, they would have joined the rest of their family in the main courtyard for daily cycling, but Kelsa seemed to have something else on her mind. She started off studying him, her hair pulled back and face severe. You seem tired, she said at last. You didn't sleep well, which will slow your arm's recovery. What were you doing? Over the years, he'd found that the fastest way to deal with his sister was to respond immediately and honestly. Cycling, I was trying to process the rest of the fruit. And have you? Not fully. The foreign madras still crackled like lightning in his core, but less than it had the day before. He couldn't tell how much less, or if digesting it had made any difference at all. This was not the effect he'd ever imagined from a legendary natural treasure. Hilsa cupped her chin in her hand, pondering for a moment. We'll come back to that. For the moment, we should discuss our strategy in getting you through the duel. Only 5 days. Only 5 days left. Can we? He asked. Her answering glare was as firm as a strike to the chest. This is our family's honor. If I can't get you to acquit yourself well, I don't deserve my badge. Lyndon straightened his spine, adjusting for the increased pressure on his shoulders. Then where do we begin? Obviously, there's no good outcome if you fight the girl. You're ashamed if you win, and you're ashamed if you lose. He didn't need a reminder of that, but he remained quiet, waiting for her to continue. Your only honorable option is to challenge someone of greater standing in the Mon family, like perhaps Waymon Terrace. This has the disadvantage of getting you killed. That was a slight exaggeration. The Mon family wasn't likely to kill a relative in front of the whole clan, but they could. And honor would require them to injure Lyndon severely, which was another consequence he'd prefer to avoid. I would suggest you fight the girl for a while and then concede. You could say that an Unsouled is not worthy to fight someone of the Mon family, which gives them face. They'll accept. You'll be embarrassed for a while, but in the end your reputation will improve. You will have handled the duel with grace and accepted defeat with dignity. At the price of telling the Mon family that I'm worth less than they are. She nodded once. Yes. Kelsa never shied away from the truth. Lyndon didn't think of himself as overly prideful, but he burned at the thought of humbling himself in front of all the other Way families. For one thing, his She family would be seen as vulnerable if he publicly demonstrated his weakness. Their rivals would push them, seeking to exploit a perceived opening. After watching his expression for a few seconds, Kelsa folded both hands on her knees. But I'm sure you didn't waste the day yesterday. What's your plan? Sheepishly, Lyndon reached into his sling, where he'd tucked the technique manual. I found this technique in the archives. It's not directly useful, but it might have given me an idea. She snatched the manual from his hand and glanced over the first page. You want to split your core? Her tone made it clear exactly what she thought of that idea. No, of course not. While cycling according to the method described in the Heart of Twin Stars manual, he spent the night thinking. He suspected there were other uses for a split core rather than just defending using one specific technique. Oh, I lost it. But they were too risky to difficult to test. One specific, oh, geez, hold on. He suspected that there were other uses for a split core rather than just defending against one specific technique, but they were too risky or difficult to test. There's a second technique in there. Kelsa looked back down at the book. The empty palm. It would be easier if I was a copper, I know, but in theory, it's just injecting your Madra into a certain point. It should be enough. She flipped through each page in the thin manual, paying special attention to the back. It doesn't describe the timing, or the energy flow, or the foundation you'd need to pull it off, only how to defend against it. Kelsa snapped the pages shut. But ultimately, yes, I think the empty palm. I think there's enough information here that we could develop a version of the empty palm. It's simple enough, anyway. Lyndon leaned forward, eager. Can you teach me? In the Wei clan, most sacred artists reach the Iron Stage in their 21st or 22nd year. For Kelsa to have reached the barrier between copper and iron at the age of 16 meant that she was more than merely talented. She had the discipline and the skills to match. Abruptly, Kelsa rose to her feet. That's up to you. I have some ideas, but I need a living target with a functioning core if I want to try them out. That means you. You can disable my spirit, but it won't do much. I can hardly defend against my. Oh. You can disable my spirit, but it won't do much. I can hardly defend myself to begin with. Kelsa stretched first one arm, then the other. That's not what I mean. The manual mentions that he had a way to achieve purity for the technique to work. We don't have time for that, so I'll be pushing my Madra into your core until I get a feel for the technique. As a sacred artist on the path of the White Fox, Kelsa cultivated aspects of dreams and light. What the? Bent towards the purposes of deceiving enemies. Accepting it directly into his core meant. I have another idea, Lyndon said with a half step back. I could try on you first, and we could work from there. I need to understand the theory myself, Kelsa said, dropping into a balanced stance on the balls of her feet. Her left hand was extended, her right held back. Her whole body angled sideways. First trial. Oh wow, good job winning 60,000 berries. Lyndon tried to protest again, but Kelsa unfolded in a deceptively quick movement that left the heel of her palm against his core, just below the navel. She'd used hardly any force, and the strike came with no pain. It felt like a light slap, if anything. But the world went mad. The soft blue cloudbell flowers at his feet took flight, flapping around his eyes. Shadows in the bushes flickered and giggled, while the clouds zoomed around like zealous fish in the ocean of the sky. Grass tickled his feet through his shoes, and he tiptoed around to avoid it. The ground must not have liked that, because it finally had enough and slapped him in the back of the head. He came to in a wrench of returning sensation, lying flat on his back in the garden and staring up into the sky. His arm had begun to ache again. Over him, Kelsa was flexing her palm. Too slow. The motion has to carry the Madra. You can't rely on transmission through contact. Stand up. I need to try again. Lyndon crawled to his feet, still dizzy. Wait, I think it's worse on me, because I can't. She hit him again. After the garden stopped partying without him, he spoke from the ground. I'm not standing up again. I'm not. Kelson was moving at half speed, stepping forward in a slow palm thrust. She repeated the first step a few times, working something out in her head. Then you'll be worthless for the rest of your life, she said casually. But the words were like a spear to the ribs. You don't want to shame the family? Stand up. She didn't so much as glance at him, as though she didn't care whether he stood up or not. I've almost worked it out. It has to transmit all at once, not like a stream, but a gust of wind. Lyndon stood up again, and again. 11 more times. By the end, the earth never stopped spinning. Even when the effects wore off, he tried to rise up again, but up and sideways seemed to have stopped. Oh, jeez, seemed to have swapped places, and he stumbled into the cloud bells. Their stalks were sharper than they looked. Kelso reached in and hauled him out with ease, steadying him with a grip on his shoulder. 10 breaths passed before he could take a step without swaying. Rally yourself, she said, stepping forward and shove in one step forward and shove in one motion, focusing Madra in your palm. Release it in one breath like a gust of wind, being sure to exhale and cycle the rest of your body for stability. Understood? Lyndon was trying to determine if his senses were back under control. Was that was that flickering shadow a sign of lingering madness or a leaf blowing in the wind? Please, I need a moment. Kilsa rarely had the patience to wait around, and though she allowed him to rest, she did so reluctantly. She paced in the garden, studying the heart of twin stars as she did. Let's return to an earlier subject, she said, without looking up from the book. The fruit. Have you finished cycling it? Almost all, he said, sensing the tingling sparks that lingered in his core. I haven't noticed much of a change. She squinted at the page. I can't see clearly. Bring out your light. Lyndon looked around at the bright morning light. Do you need me to find you a healer? She used the manual to point at his robes. You're my disciple for the day. Pull out your light. To his sister, Lyndon would have protested. To his master, Lyndon would have obeyed without a word. He spent a few seconds deciding which she was, and eventually reached into his pack to produce a palm-sized board. The board was covered with an intricate 3-layered script in the script circle, and when he fed his mantra into it, it burst into white light. The rune light was much stronger than from an ordinary script, and remarkably steady. This was the script's only purpose, to produce light on command. It would last as long as the user's spirit did. Lyndon held the board over the book with the shiny script down, though it made no discernible difference among the bright sunlight. Elsa didn't thank him, but spoke as she read. I finished processing the Oris root last night. It was quite the experience. Did it feel as though you'd swallowed a thunderbolt? Mine did, but as I continued cycling, I didn't feel much else. It was as though the fruit vanished. I was wondering if Mother had mistaken, and this wasn't the miraculous spirit fruit she thought. She looked at him, but kept her book open, so he didn't remove the light. It wasn't until early this morning that I noticed the changes. Tell me, does your light seem brighter than usual to you? Lyndon flipped the light over and examined it himself. It was almost impossible to tell how bright it was, especially compared to memory. Perhaps a little? Keep watching until you can see a difference. Lyndon knew his sister was headed somewhere with this, and he would exhaust himself eventually. He kept the light ignited, staring into it, looking for the slightest difference in illumination. He noticed nothing. Finally, she told him he could stop. How do you feel? She asked him. Absolutely ordinary. Yet you burned the light for 52 seconds, and you could have kept going. How long could you do it before? Unlike the brightness question, he could answer this one. 30 seconds at most. He had used his board. He had used this board to light his way while diving in the river, so he knew exactly how long he could keep it lit. But he must be wrong. When he sensed his core, he didn't feel any stronger. Are you sure you counted properly? Sh- Oh, that was him. Are you sure you counted properly? She snapped the technique manual closed, wearing a pleased look. The fruit's madra integrates so smoothly with your own that we don't notice. Yesterday I was copper, and today I'm on the verge of condensing iron. But I don't feel any different. And yesterday, you wouldn't be able to use the empty palm more than once without passing out. Lyndon's breaths were coming more quickly, and the flowers in the garden suddenly smelled almost painfully sweet. What about now? She adopted a low stance, balanced and firmly planted, prepared to be hit. How should I know? Now, disciple. Empty palm. This time, Lyndon snapped into action as he would for a real sacred arts master. He stepped forward and pivoted at the hips, launching a palm strike at his sister's stomach. Synced with his madra, it should have driven energy through her core like a steel spike, but it splashed like a cup of water instead. One gust, not a breeze, Kelsa barked. Again! His head was already light and his limbs weak, but he tried until he passed out. When he awoke, he tried again. 4 days later, the most prominent families of the Wei clan gathered once more before the Hall of Elders at the break of dawn. A few in the a, f- a few industrious sacred artists sat cross-legged in the courtyard, cycling in the first light of dawn. Everyone else stood, eager to watch the show. If something went wrong, an honored family might fall from grace today. The Mon family waited on one side of the cleared space, Airy in front. She hopped in place, practicing attacks on an invisible opponent. Hmm. Um, his scowl said she looked. Her scowl said she was looking to kill. Keth stood over his daughter, arms folded, scanning the crowd for the She family, which was why Lyndon had shown up together with his family. Kelsa and his father walked beside him, while his mother kept up as best she could while taking notes. The first elder stood on the stairs of the hall, and as he had before, but this time his brow was furrowed in a frown that seemed to carve into his wrinkled face. This is a duel for honor, and so it may continue, but any wounds to the young are wounds to our clan, so I must ask if there is any way for the offended parties to resolve this. Ari executed a series of punches that veered ominously low. No other way, she declared. Before his training with Kelsa, Lyndon would have agreed with her. He'd seen no other way out. But while practicing the empty palm, he had been struck by an idea. A terrible idea. He bowed towards the Mon family, bending over his wounded arm. Honorable head of the Mon family, this one has a request. Keth straightened his back, responding to Lyndon's humble speech. I will not release you from the duel. Lyndon could properly appeal to the first elder on the basis of his injury, and at least ensure a little more time. But there was an opportunity here, and if he let his own crippling weakness get in the way of opportunity, he'd never achieve anything. This one would dare not ask so much. Instead, this one wishes to challenge another member of your family. Aries' mouth dropped open in a comic show of disappointment, and she turned to her father as though to ask if he could possibly allow this. Keth, for his part, worked his jaw as though chewing the idea over. His eyes roamed to his fur-clad son, Terrace, who still sat gingerly after his whipping. Which would you challenge? Keth finally asked. Lyndon met the eyes of the grown man more than twice his age. This fighter was legendary for his unflinching courage in combat. I challenge Wei Mon Keth. He had somewhat expected gasps from the surrounding families, or at least derisive laughter, but the crowd reacted with utter silence. A foundation artist challenging an iron wasn't interesting gossip. It was like an infant trying to bite a tiger. Oof. Do. Wait. Okay. Sorry, guys. Had to do something real fast. He had. Oh, yep. Copper souls could process vital aura, giving them a supply of Madra that was both more expansive and more effective. But a quick or clever Foundation child could overcome that disadvantage. An iron body was a qualitative difference. Compared to copper or below, irons were superhuman. Waymon Keth looked as though he'd lost what little respect he might once have had for Lyndon, but he didn't dismiss the idea out of hand. Explain. This one must prove his courage, as must your son, Terrace. A dark cloud passed over Terrace's face, even at the indirect mention of his cowardice. But Lyndon plowed ahead. However, the opponent Terrace faced was many levels higher than he. It seems only fair that this one should have faced an adversary as exalted. This time, a quiet murmur did ripple through the crowd. Lyndon and his sister had spent 2 days making sure their argument was sensible enough that those gathered would have no choice but to take it seriously. Within his sleeves, Lyndon clenched his fists. He was close to the outcome he wanted, but he needed Keth to agree. The head of the Mon family rubbed his short beard with 2 fingers. This is a better way to demonstrate courage. What terms would you accept? Traditionally, the challenged would set the terms, which meant Keth would have been within his rights to set a fight with no restrictions and then knock Lyndon onto the peak of the nearest mountain. But other families would have looked down on him for abusing his power against a junior. So he took the honorable course and allowed Lyndon to define the fight, which was Lyndon's only hope. 1 strike each, if it pleases you. First, you take 1 strike from this one without defense or resistance, then you strike me in return. The first to lose footing is defeated. Keth's brow furrowed. You would be wise to set different terms. There was precedent for a duel like this, if not one so hilariously out of balance. Jade elders had once exchanged pointers 1 blow at a time, with the more confident party agreeing to take the first hit. But this was supposed to look like Lyndon was throwing himself on Keth's mercy, and he had to hope that the Mon family head would see that. This one hopes you might hold back when you strike, but at least this one may show that he is not afraid to take a blow. At last, Keth's face lightened as he understood. Lyndon was giving him a chance to administer a punishment equal to Terrace, humiliate Lyndon publicly, and remind people of his own strength in 1 blow. As long as he didn't kill Lyndon, he would be seen as both strong and merciful, and he would only gain in reputation. You're clever, Kat said with a nod. You show courage. I agree. That was it. The rules of the game were set, all of his cards played. He almost couldn't believe that it had gone so easily. He moved away from his family as though he drifted forward in a dream, opposing Waymon Keth across the open space in the center of the courtyard. He kept expecting someone from the Mon family to object, but none made a sound. As the first elder ordered them to face one another, Lyndon's heart pounded on the inside of his ribs. This was his chance, his first real chance since he was 7 years old. It had been a long time coming. So why did it feel so soon? If, n- if none object, the elder said, almost hopefully. No one did, and the dawn air froze. The first elder straightened his back, sweeping his hand to present the challengers. Then may this duel begin. Lyndon faced Waymon Keth, who stood taller even than he was, and twice as wide. The man seemed to take up more of the horizon than Yoma Mountain, looming over Lyndon and blotting out the rising sun. The older man's arms fell to his side, leaving his slate-gray robes completely undefended. The first blow is yours, he said. He didn't even brace himself, as Kelsa had done. And why should he? With all of Lyndon's strength, he wouldn't be able to tip over an iron balanced on one foot. Lyndon stepped in, preparing his attack, cycling energy through his limbs to keep them under his control. He felt as though they would shake away from his body. He cocked his upper body, drawing back for a palm strike. As he did, he focused his Madra at the base of his palm as he'd practiced. One pulse, like a gust of wind, but focused like an iron spike. At the copper level, this part of the process would be quick and simpler than breathing. His Majra would have been dense and powerful. As it was, Lyndon had to focus his entire strength on his palm for 3 breaths of time as he prepared. It was slow, it was clumsy, and it would never work against a prepared opponent. But he wasn't facing a prepared opponent. The empty palm landed accurately, just below Keth's navel, along with an invisible thorn that he drove like a hammer driving a nail. Lyndon felt his own Madra snapping into the man's core, sensed the shiver of feedback that ran through the spiritual lines that crossed his body like veins. Keth trembled and looked at Lyndon in shock, but he didn't stagger backwards as Lyndon had hoped. He hadn't taken a single step. Panic shook Lyndon even more than the empty palm shook Keth. His empty palm had been perfect, but if Keth didn't lose his footing, it wouldn't matter. Lyndon would have to take a blow from an iron striker who knew that he'd been tricked. If Waymon Keth caved in Lyndon's ribcage with a fist, he would face no more than a fine. What have you? Keth began, but Lyndon followed up with a second attack, driven by all the raw-nerved, terrified desperation in his soul. This one wasn't guided by any technique or sacred art. It was nothing more than an ordinary punch to the gut. Every observer in the crowd would know how useless it was. He would have a better chance punching an iron plate than an iron practitioner. Pain echoed up Lyndon's knuckles as he reached his shoulder as though he really had punched a metal plate. But Keth's breath whooshed out of his lungs. He clutched his stomach and took 2 steps backwards, his legs shaking as he tried to stop himself from going to his knees. Except for Kelsa and Lyndon, every single other person present drew in a sharp gasp. It sounded like a ghost passing over the crowd. Before anyone could speak, Lyndon bowed to his still staggering opponent. This one thanks you for instruction, he rushed out. You are the victor. Then he scurried back to his family. He didn't need to win, after all. He only needed to save face. And while he may have been able to endure an attack from an Iron Sacred Artist who adhered to the honorable rules of a duel, he would never survive a blow from an enraged Iron with blood in his heart. Stand where you are, Unsouled, Keth roared, and the shout was driven with all the force of his Madra and fury. He straightened, which meant he'd recovered his spirit from the disruption of the empty palm. During Lyndon's tests with Kelsa, it only took her 4 or 5 breaths to recover, so it wasn't surprising that someone at the Iron Stage would be even faster. Oh, sneaking in for my streak. Sadly, no audio in stealth mode. Oh, that's okay. Thank you for coming in. I know you can't hear it, but hi. Welcome in, Jadopi. Yeah. I hope you enjoy getting your streak. Oh, yeah. Okie doke. I wonder how many more pages in chapter 5. Oh, not that many. It's almost over. Okay. Power gathered around Keth's fist until it was visible, warping the air in a haze that reminded Lyndon of the attack Terrace had used to fell. Sorry, warping the air in a haze that reminded Lyndon of the attack Terrace had used to fell the ancestral tree. I owe you a strike. His imagination provided him with an image of his body cracking in half as easily as the tree had, his bones snapping like dry branches. He was relying on someone to intervene on his behalf. His life was in the hands of the crowd, and for a long second they were all silent. Even his father, Geron, had stared at him in confusion, still too shocked by the events of the duel to do anything to help. To Lyndon's relief, the first elder stepped between him and the Mon family head, his long eyebrows and wispy beard flowing in the morning wind. Weishi Lyndon has surrendered. The duel is over, and you are the victor. Congratulations. No, excuse me. Lyndon let out a heavy breath, and the sudden rush of relief stole his strength. He half expected to collapse onto the stone at that instant. Even the first elder's harshest critic could not have found a trace of mockery in his words, but Keth turned to him in fury. He cheated! He violated the terms of the duel by striking twice, in a deliberate attempt to humiliate me. For which he deserved to lose, the elder reminded him, as he admitted his loss. Thank you for this 5-stream streak, Dobby. It was great to have you in for a little bit. I hope Workies goes well. Keth drew up in absolute rage, swelling to seemingly twice his size. He conspired to ruin my dignity as an iron. Geron's laughter was high and scornful as he hobbled his way forward, leaning on his cane. He'd finally overcome his confusion to side with his son, or at least against an old rival. Whatever trick a mouse uses, it cannot defeat a lion. If Lyndon decided to charge you with a spear, what is that to you? His strength should have never been able to harm you, no matter how he cheated. A true warrior of the Iron Stage would not be shaken by a child's punch. Lyndon winced and pushed back further into the crowd. He had more or less expected Keth's reaction, but he hadn't anticipated his father making everything worse. His sister caught him by the shoulder as he tried to sneak by. Well done, she whispered. She moved in front of him, ready to defend him at need. The Madra around Keth's fist condensed into spitting balls of purple-edged white fire. Foxfire was only an illusion of flame. It produced no actual heat, but if it touched flesh, it would burn with the agony of real fire. I do need to do this real quick. Oh, welcome in, Santis. How's it going? Good, good, good. Glad to hear it. Welcome into stream. I'm doing pretty good. I'm just reading a book. And it's going so well so far. I think everyone's enjoying it. Um, yeah. But yeah, welcome in. I hope you're having a good day. Let's see, where was I? Here we go. I see how the She family addresses members of the same clan, Keth shouted, trying to drum up support from the audience. With shame and dishonor. Grant me a contest against Shi Jiran, the one responsible for the Unsouled, or I will find my own satisfaction here. Yep, reading time. Yippee. um, the first elder raised a hand. Keth, Jiran, I have seen enough. Return to your families. This duel has concluded, and the Mon family is victorious. A few laughs from the surrounding gallery. No one present believed that the Mon family had won, least of all Mon Keth. Oh, hi, Lucy. Welcome in. Yippee, welcome, welcome. I am reading a novel, yep. This is called Cradle. This is Unsouled, the first book in the Cradle series. Yeah. Hi, Lucy. Welcome in. Um, yeah, I love this book series. I've listened to it 5 times through over the last few years, and I wanted to read it physically for everybody. The reading of the book looks like a novel. Yeah, it's a super good one too. I love Cradle. I need a quick drink. Costco? Sorry, I'm confused. Oh, cost. Um, I think the physical books per book is $20, and there's 13 of them currently. So if you wanted the physical books, it'd be quite a bit. It's less than that if you get the audiobook versions, because I believe Audible credits are less than $20. So and you can get them all on Audible. I also recommend getting it on Audible just because the narrator is amazing. I love the narration for the Cradle series. It's immaculate. By afternoon, there would be a new Mon family myth: the Unsouled who had struck down an iron. Lyndon couldn't deny his pride at the thought. When the first elder turned his head, thinking the matter settled, Keth flowed forward. He must have used some sort of movement technique, because one step brought him before Duran, his fist cocked back to deliver a blow that shone purple with foxfire. Lyndon's father raised his hands to defend, but even Lyndon could tell he'd been caught off guard. His cane fell to the ground as he lifted both hands, his scarred face tightening into a grimace. The scene flickered. Jiran and the first elder switched places, and now Mon's flame rent and now Mon's flame wreathed fist was crashing down on the elder. Not the head of the Shi family. I read that wrong. Not the head of the Shi family. Okie doke. Well, thanks for coming in, Santee. Have a good day. If I see you back here before I'm done, it'll be good to see ya. And thank you for the 3-stream streak, Lucy. Not the head of the She family. Thank you. I will try to have a good day. Um, Duran's hands were still raised to defend himself from nothing. For an instant, Lyndon's mind refused to help what he was seeing. Had the first elder switched places with his father's in that breath? In a move that seemed slow and clear, but must have taken half a second at most, the elder held up two fingers. He placed them to the side of Keth's wrist, gently guiding the strike down and to the side. Foxfire swished through the air as a illusory purple-white fireball struck the stone, dealing absolutely no damage whatsoever. Duran lowered his hands, stunned. The first elder continued his movement, moving his two fingers to Monketh's shoulder and pushing down. He didn't appear to exert any effort, but the much bigger man collapsed to his knees, his hands behind his back. The elder flicked his sleeve, and intricate stone manacles appeared around his wrists. Keth shouted, trying to force his way to his feet, but the first elder had already placed a hand on the man's hair. A ripple of force disturbed the air as it passed through Monketh's body, flattening his clothes and sending a pulse of dirt blasting out. His knees slammed back into the ground, and he resisted no further. Way Monketh will be in isolation training for the next month, the first elder mentioned. No doubt he wishes to meditate and learn from today's events. During this time, the Mon family will be responsible for him. You are all dismissed. Lyndon froze, replaying the scene in his mind. The first elder was a forger on the path of the White Fox. He couldn't switch bodies. He could only forge deceptions, copies of reality made of dreams and light with no real substance. White Fox illusions had no structure and could not resist the weakest attack. They relied entirely on crafting a perfect appearance. Forgers had to craft their pictures detail by detail. Even the first elder could never have created an illusion so layered, so complex as the scene Lyndon had just witnessed. Could he? Suddenly, Lyndon found himself unable to tear his gaze away from the first elder. The man who had directed the entire scene had maintained absolute control the entire time. Even now, as he instructed the Mon family to carry Keth away, he looked no more concerned than a man ordering his breakfast. This was what a real sacred artist looked like. This was the sort of power Lyndon wanted, the power he would gain on his path. Okay, that's the end of chapter 5. Wow, chapter 5 actually took quite a while. For those of you here, how's it going today? Oh my gosh, my throat. It's going good? That's good. What'd you think of chapter 5? Any thoughts, comments, concerns? All other streams are boring, so I'm back. Well, I'm glad that you find my stream a little interesting, so that's good. I've got class in a minute, so I've got class in a minute, so I might leave. Oh, that's perfectly okay. I hope you have a good class. It was good? That's good. Um, yeah. Oh, thanks for the hydrate, Jade. I will do that right now. And the stretch. Oh, you kind of don't like books? That's okay. No one has to like books. I will not make anyone like a book. Where did my bookmark go? Bookmark. Bookmark. Hmm. I seem to have lost my bookmark. Oh, I found my bookmark. But when someone reads one, I like them. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. So you prefer, so you would prefer audiobooks over reading books, right? Yeah, me too. I honestly do prefer audiobooks over reading the books, but that defeats the whole purpose of reading the book to you guys. So I am reading it anyways, but I'm enjoying it, so it's good. Still, I understand better reading over hearing. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It does help with comprehension and stuff. But at the same time, if you just want to enjoy something, okay, I gotta stretch real quick. Mm, yeah, good stretch. You just want to relax. Oh yeah. Well, you can relax, and I can read the book, so you don't have to. So this stream will come in handy. Oh yeah, I don't have the second book right now. So once I finish this one, which I'm only on chapter 6, so I'm only on chapter 6 out of 20, so it's not likely to finish super soon. It'll probably take a few more streams. But I don't plan on reading it every stream, just I might make it my Thursday streams. Yeah, it's like an actual novel. It's a full series. I believe the longest book in the series has like 32 chapters, or maybe more. Actually, I can tell you, I have the final book. That is Winter Seal. Unbound. Wait. Okay. This book has in total, including the bloopers, it has 371 pages. The biggest and longest book in this series, that is almost double the length of this book, has a total of the epilogue 20 chapter for almost, yeah, it's like an, I think it's 8 hours and 45 minutes on Audible for reading it, well, for listening to it. So it's not that long. It's not that short. The final book, that's the longest in the series, and is roughly 16 hours to listen, including the bloopers, has 574 pages and a total of 37 chapters. It's not that long, no. But it's really good. I really enjoy it. Okay. I'm gonna go get some more water. I have a little bit. I'm gonna finish this water. Hmm. Yeah, that there are definitely books with over 1,000 pages. I'm pretty sure one of the Harry Potter books actually has over 1,000 pages. I could be wrong. I think it's Order of the Phoenix is the longest book, and I think uh, Order of the Phoenix has over 1,000 pages, or something really close to 1,000. Yeah, that would. I'm pretty sure it's 936 is Order of the Phoenix, but it's Harry Potter, which is kind of crazy. Hmm, hmm. Yeah. Take a quick drink. Oh wow, chapter 6 is kind of long. It's not the longest chapter, but it is one. Okay. All right. Let's start chapter 6. Geron slammed his clay mug down on the table, sending orris wine sloshing over his wrist. That was stupid. A warrior fights with his mind first, with strategy. You don't risk your life on a fool's plan that will leave you even weaker than you already are. When I was younger, I would never have. Lyndon's father went on, talking about the glorious days when he'd been one of the most promising sacred artists in the entire clan. They were alone in Lyndon's home, with no one to listen in. You already done good progress? This could finish in one stream. It could if I wanted to sit here for 6 more hours and read. I am unfortunately busy in like 2 hours though, so I won't be able to read too much of it. So Lyndon nodded along and kept the mug filled. Probably around 3 streams, yeah. Two more maybe next Thursday, and then the Thursday after. I will probably spend around 3 or 4 hours each of those days reading until this book is finished. Thanks for the lurk, Lucy. I hope you enjoy the book. He already knew he'd been foolish. He should have told his father and mother first. He was only blessed that they had been too confused to intervene, or they could have ruined everything in trying to save him. How fortunate that they had left him alone. Time for absolute cinema? Yeah, understandable. I hope you guys really enjoy this series. Don't know what you were thinking, Geron continued, raising his mug to his lips. So stupid. Also, good narration you got there. Aw, thanks. That's really nice. I'm trying to do my best with voices. I definitely won't ever be as good as wait, Travis Baldry. He's the guy who reads it on Audible, but he's so good at reading it. I'm very happy that you think that I'm doing good though. Thank you, thank you. With one hand, he roughly reached out and grabbed his son around the shoulders, pulling him into a one-armed hug. Lyndon almost knocked over the bottle of wine. But it's the best kind of stupid, Geron said, staring into his mug. Only an idiot accepts a battle he's sure to lose, but bravery and idiocy share a border. That's what I come here for, to relax and hear a good story. Oh yeah, let's go. The son of a cripple might be a cripple, but the son of tigers won't be a dog. Geron coughed out a laugh, raising his wine as though for a toast. They'll soon see what a couple of cripples can do, son. A three-legged tiger's still got a bite. He downed the rest of his wine. A golden rush filled Lyndon from his core to his fingertips, like a pulse of fresh madra. His father approved of him. He hadn't heard open praise from his father since he'd learned to walk. Certainly not since he received his Unsouled badge. Before Lyndon could think of an appropriate response, Geron upended his cup on the table, leaving it upside down. That was even more of a shock. There was still half a bottle left. But his father leaned forward on the table, his expression turning as grave as his scarred lips would allow. You and your sister did well with the plan today, but I can't be left out again. What do you intend for the festival? The only thing that I don't want is a surprise exam containing the book. I'm not gonna give you an exam on it. I will ask you at the end of each chapter what you thought, if you had like any thoughts on the chapter or any comments for things that you thought were cool or things that you were like a little confused about. But I'm not gonna like make you answer questions, like exam questions on it. I just want to know how you feel. I don't ever want to make anyone uncomfortable, so even if that's too much, you don't have to answer at the end of each chapter. If you want to, you're very welcome to, but you don't have to. Lyndon had been more concerned about surviving the week with his honor intact, but he had given the upcoming 7-year festival some thought. The children at my stage will have better foundation techniques. The empty palm gives me an edge in combat. I should be able to take first. Empty palm, Geron muttered. Is that what you call it? Disrupts the enemy's spirit with an injection into the core? He should have known his parents would see through it immediately. Yes, father. You're lucky. If you had cultivated any aspects at all, it wouldn't have worked so well. Lyndon rubbed his temple, memories of the dreamlike visions swimming in his head. Kelsa put me on the ground with the same technique every time. I couldn't trust my own eyes. Of course she did. She's a copper, and you're an unsouled. You can't defend against her any more than an ant can stop a boot. If she had tried the same thing you did on Way Monketh today, he wouldn't have even noticed. That violated everything Lyndon knew about the sacred arts. But his father wouldn't be mistaken about something like this. Surely when Monketh left himself undefended, Kelsa's empty palm would have done far more damage than mine. Geron's fist tightened on the table. Son, if that's what you think, you came close to a harsh lesson today. A weapon held in ignorance only wounds its bearer. Lyndon sat up straighter, a chill running down his spine. He thought he'd prepared for the morning duel as well as he could. But if he'd made a mistake, he really could have died. If it worked as you imagined, why doesn't every sacred artist in the Wei clan use this empty palm? We could disable any opponent with one strike. Because it's difficult to strike the core, Lyndon said, knowing he was playing the fool. The enemy would be on guard against it. I know it only worked against Monketh because he didn't defend himself, but who would do that in battle? You're missing the most fundamental reason. It's because your Madra is pure. He raised his hand, palm up, where a hazy purple-white impression danced on his palm. His own power. Our white fox is formed from an aura of light and dreams, and it will act according to its nature, even unformed, you see. Lyndon peered closer. As the energy danced in his father's palm, it gathered in the shape of a running rabbit, of a flag snapping in the wind, of his mother's face. He thought he heard sounds, impossibly distant.
The cry of a wolf, the panting of a man running for his life, the steady drip of water. The white fox, unrestrained, tricked the senses by its very nature. Duran closed his fist, and the images vanished. Untrained Madra, that of a child or an unsouled, is still pure. It has no form, and so it only affects the spirit. But it does so more naturally than anything else. There's very little defense against it. A strike from me would have not affected Monketh's core. If anything, it would have confused him for a moment before his own spirit rejected my influence. But yours influences the core directly. Lyndon remembered a line from the Heart of Twin Stars manual, a note he hadn't given much thought. How he cancels out the aspect. Sorry. Need a little drink. How he cancels out the aspects of his Madra, I have not yet deduced, but the result is undeniable. The developer of the empty palm had come up with a way to purify himself in spite of his previous training. Only a moment ago, he had worried that his ignorance may have taken him too close to death, but now he couldn't deny a measure of excitement. Of all the sacred artists in the Wei clan, only he had yet to absorb any vital aura. That meant he had capabilities no one else did. His father saw his thoughts and held up a hand. Unfortunately, pure Madra has only two uses. It can activate scripts just as anyone can, and it shakes the spirit. That's all. For anything else, you may as well have no power at all. It's also incredibly difficult to strengthen your spirit without harvesting aspects from the world. And it typically requires elixirs or natural treasures, like the fruit you found. If you cultivate aspects that exist in heaven and earth, you can soak vital aura from the environment as you cycle. That's how I do it. That's how your mother does it. That's how everyone does it. To keep yourself pure, you'd have to give up the easiest and most reliable way of getting stronger. Worse, you'd sacrifice your most dependable means of self-defense. A fire sacred artist could burn arrows out of the air mid-flight, and a sword artist could strike them out of the air. An artist of pure Madra would be helpless to affect the flight of an arrow. He would die as helpless as a bird. Lyndon nodded seriously along with Duran's words, but his enthusiasm didn't dim. It was as though he meant to cultivate pure Madra forever. He would start on a path as soon as he was allowed, but this was an advantage he had now, an advantage that had gone to waste. Even an unsouled wasn't entirely useless after all. Having firmly driven his point home, Duran drummed his knuckles on the table. Your sister knew all this, so you were safe this time, but carelessness is a short path to death in the sacred arts. Interesting for now, the chapter, not gonna lie. Right? A lot of stuff is being explained. A lot of stuff that that is very much necessary later on in the series. It's why a good plan is so important, which brings me back to the festival. Lyndon thought for a moment before speaking, choosing his words carefully. I plan to use the empty palm on my opponents. At the foundation stage, they should have no defense, and I'll take first place easily. Duran leaned forward. Information that I want to keep, but my brain won't let me to. Yeah, that's okay. It'll come back to you when you hear it later on. Duran leaned forward, rapping him on the top of the head. It hurt more than he'd expected. You said that before, but I was hoping you'd think this time. Acting without thinking is bad, but it's worse to think like a coward. Jibes and backhanded insults from his father were far more familiar than compliments. Excuse my foolishness, father, but I don't see the error in my words. After the strike, you always follow up with a second. He laughed suddenly. Like Monketh this morning, right? First hit lands, in comes your second one. You landed a hit today with your plan, with your sister's help and heaven's own luck. People see you as the unsouled who beat an iron. That's an advantage to you, which means you've got to strike again now. What can you get out of this? Lyndon's body thrummed with hunger, the same appetite that Elder Whisper had woken by speaking of a new path rose up in him. A yawning void that demanded to be filled. This was his chance to snatch another piece for himself, to climb another step closer to everything he ever wanted. He'd forgotten about his father, his mind racing from option to option. Could he leverage this notoriety into a request for training materials? Could he borrow the parasite ring from the patriarch? With the excuse that he needed, it to prepare for the festival? No, he would have to appeal to the patriarch directly, who wouldn't be able to show him favoritism. Lyndon had fought with another member of the Wei clan, and thus not brought any honor to the clan as a whole, so the patriarch wouldn't be able to reward him. Maybe he could go to the Eighth Elder in the archive and request a few minutes with the path manuals. Not to take one, just to study and learn. But given the Eighth Elder's personality, he wouldn't be swayed by anything Lyndon had done. So it came down to one question. Who had enough power in the clan to give him a gift and the motivation to do so? A figure appeared in his mind, and he abruptly stood up. He froze when he remembered his father. Even though this was Lyndon's home, Duran was both father and guest. If Lyndon left, it would be disrespectful. Duran saw his dilemma and laughed again, flipping his cup over. Go, wherever you're going. That's not the face of a coward, so my work is done here. And I have your wine to keep me company. I love the narration. Ah, thanks. I'm glad. Grateful, Lyndon bowed his way out. Lyndon used the morning's duel as an excuse to enter the first elder's home, which was readily accepted by the elder's niece. It gives a new spin to the novel. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoy. Um, she congratulated him on the way in. As soon as he passed through the door, he understood why the first elder of the Wei clan would live here. It was the perfect place to cultivate White Fox Madra. Inside the hallway, mirrors shone to his left and right, reflecting his image in an endless chain stretching off to eternity. It it became entertaining instead of boring. That's awesome. I'm so glad. Yippee. Foxfire flickered in the lamps, purple and white, casting phantom images on one mirror that weren't reflected in the other. The effect, even one step inside the doorway, was like swimming in a sea of dreams. The hall was perfectly straight, but Lyndon still slid forward, one careful step at a time, not daring to trust his senses. That's one reason why I don't hate. But yeah, yeah, that's awesome. It does become very entertaining if it's narrated well. And I feel like it makes it a lot better to to be able to read or just listen to a book if there's narration. Since he trained the empty palm with Kelsa, he'd gained a new appreciation for just how disorienting the path of the white fox could be. If the narration is good, it does become good. Yeah, I'm very glad that you're enjoying my narration. As he moved deeper into the house, he passed more oddities intended to focus Dream Aura. One painting of abstract shapes reminded him of a stern face one second and a tight flock of crows the next. A snow fox statue seemed to follow him with its eyes as he passed. Clusters of chimes on the ceiling were interspersed with ribbons of paper, trailing his entry with soft whispers and fragile music. As sticks of incense burned, they produced conflicting scents, sweet like mint, acrid as charred paper, savory like a haunch of roasted meat. My throat. The senses bent and warped in the house, and Lyndon's head ached after only a minute or two inside. He couldn't imagine living under these conditions. But then again, he didn't follow the path of the White Fox. Maybe the first elder was more comfortable here. Lisha, the first elder called from the other room, what are you doing out there? A human voice gave Lyndon something to anchor to, and he stumbled in that direction, running his good hand over the wall searching for a door. He found one, sliding it open. The elder was inside, kneeling beside a low table, brush poised over a scroll. I didn't expect to see you again today, she Lyndon, he said without looking up. Lyndon bowed over his broken arm. This one begs your indulgence, honored elder. The first elder waved his hand irritably. Wait there quietly. I must reply to one of the esteemed schools, who insist that we honor them by intervening in a problem that does not concern us. He had been ordered to silence, but Lyndon took a risk. A problem, first elder? The elder rubbed a spot on his temple, glaring at the scroll as though it contained a death threat. The Honorable Heaven's Glory School has lost no less than 4 disciples to abduction, it seems. Apparently, an outsider is torturing and killing them for secrets of their sacred arts. Despite the grim news, Lyndon was somewhat excited. Torturing a rival disciple for secret arts only happened in legends. Do they suspect the Wei clan? No, no, don't worry. This has nothing to do with us, and this certainly isn't the full story. But they still want assurances of our immediate and absolute compliance. The clans have enough to deal with without taking on the burdens of the schools as well. We'll show the other clans our power at the 7-year festival, Lyndon said, angling the conversation around to his point. As the Li and Kazan clans will seek to show us, the first elder pointed out. The Kazan, in particular, are maneuvering aggressively for one of our farms by the river. They either know something about that farm or they have some secret that allows them to act arrogantly. But the roaring tiger loses its prey to the tiger hidden in the brush. The Li clan has made no motion to prove its strength before the festival, and that worries me most of all. The elder placed his brush down and straightened. I forgot myself. These are not matters for an unsouled. What brings you here, she Linden? This one request this one has a request, honored elder, Linden said, bowing again. Then he dropped the humble speech to meet the first elder's eyes. Today, I've shown that my ability reaches beyond my level of advancement. You've shown that you can use tricks to embarrass a man more skilled and more powerful than you are. Honor by any means, Linden said, and the first elder conceded the point with a nod. I have every confidence in my ability to sweep the foundation stage competition at the festival. As you should, the elder pointed out. You'll be the oldest one there competing by at least 2 years. That will win us no honor among the clans. This was the very point Linden had come to address. The elder speaks truthfully, but this one wonders if the first elder has considered the exhibition match. The victor of each stage won the right to challenge one competitor of higher advancement to an exhibition round. The foundation winner could challenge a copper, the copper winner could challenge an iron, and so on. It wasn't a true contest, but rather a display of skill. Against a more advanced opponent, one could display one's true ability. The elder ran fingers through his long white beard as he thought. It would improve our standing if the foundation champion from our clan could fight evenly with a copper from another clan. If you could pull a trick like you did today, embarrassing another clan, then you would have earned a reward. What is your request? A path, Lyndon said simply. Out of the question, the first elder responded without hesitation. Do you understand why we forbid unsouls to practice the sacred arts? It's for your own protection. You're as likely to maim your own soul as to advance to copper. Elixirs and training would be wasted on you. You would forever be the weakest one on the path. Oh yeah, if you just do Poke Start, it'll give you a starter Pokemon, and you can start catching them. You do have to buy Pokeballs though. Oh no no no! It doesn't give you real money. It's just game money. So that way you can buy Pokeballs and items and stuff. Under my stream, there should be a tab for the game itself. You can see it under there. I got scared for a second. Oh no no no. Um yeah, so under my stream, you'll see a panel for the PCG, and you can in chat do exclamation Pokey Start to begin your journey. It'll give you a starter Pokemon, and I think 10 Pokeballs and a little bit of money to start. You gain money over time, and you can get stuff from. You can catch Pokemon, stuff like that. Okay, right, that's fine. Just letting you know for if you do. Okie doke. Well. Lyndon was prepared to negotiate for a lower price, but he sensed an opening here. As long as the elder was using reason to convince rather than making an absolute statements, that left room for discussion. The resources of the clan should obviously go to more promising disciples than I, but if I have defeated a copper from another clan, then surely I've proven that I have as much worth as have as much ability as they do. I suck. What? What's that for? That's not very nice. Where did that come from, Captain? What the heck? I don't know. Just got Captain over here saying I suck. What the heck, man? um, if that's true, then why should I be forbidden from practicing a path? Guys, this. What's. What? Captain, I will literally time you out. No, no, he's my friend. He's just. He's just silly. Ugh. I won't ban him. I will time him out though. Okay, timeout time. Uh-huh. 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 Okay, I'm gonna continue reading. If that's true, then why should I be forbidden from practicing a path? Foxfire flickered in the corner of his eyes, showing him phantom motion that was as much in his mind, tempting him to turn his head. But he watched the first elder as the old man thought. Hope grew with every second of the elder's silence, and finally he opened his mouth to say, You'll be you'll be entirely on your own, you know. If I may say so, being on my own has never stopped me before. The first elder considered a moment longer, and then slowly nodded. You'll have access to the Path of the White Fox. I'll have a copy made for you, but so you don't take resources away from other students. But, Linden, heed me. You must win. Thank you for saying I don't suck. I know I don't. He's just being a little silly. He says that kind of stuff all the time to our entire friend group. Oh, I didn't realize this was part of chapter 6. Okay. If a hater comes, though, I know. If a hater comes, though, they will be promptly dealt with. I have a mod in chat, and then if I also need to, I can deal with it. Or at least I'm pretty sure I have a mod in chat. I do have a mod in chat. Okie doke. Well, let's continue on. Actually, I'm gonna go quickly get some more water. I will be right back. You're the hater. No, you're not. No, you're not. Okay, I will be right back, chat. Android, not you too. Come on. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. All right, I'm back with water. Oh, wrong one. This one. There we go. Okay. I will take a quick drink. Hmm. Yeah, I was just going to get some water. Why are you killing me? What? What did I do? Oh, you thought it would be for like 20 minutes? Fair enough. No, Android, I know you're not a hater because you're making my sub batches. If you were a hater, you would have told me now. So, I also know that Mari is not a hater, Captain. No, you guys.
Okay. Okay, guys. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start reading again. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Mari. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Iteration 110. Cradle. Serial lurched from the way into a reality of flat. And I'm gonna restart. Serial lurched from the way into reality in a flash of blue light, floating at the high edge of the atmosphere. A planet spread out beneath her like a childhood blanket, blue and green and familiar. Uh, it w- it's just best not to react to it, Santi. I'm here for a bit too because I don't need to do any work, so I'm going in this book blind. Well, you're gonna be very blind because I'm like halfway through chapter 6. Or a little more than halfway through chapter 6. After this chapter I can do a brief gist of everything that's gone on in each chapter. Uh just for a little context behind everything. Luckily, this portion of the chapter has nothing it doesn't follow what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna start over. No, yeah, I'll start over one more time. I'm just gonna start reading now, though. Syria lurched from the way into reality in a flash of blue light, floating at the high edge of atmosphere. A planet spread out beneath her like a childhood blanket, blue and green and familiar. Successfully arrived in iteration 110, said a ghostly presence on her shoulder. It had come with the job, because no lone mind could control all the powers at Serial's disposal. Local time is plus 5.2 deviations from standard. She would lose time here, and communication with Sanctum would be delayed, so her journey would take longer. But then, that was the point. What is the purpose of your visit? The presence inquired. It was an innocent question, as the presence was innocent. But Suriel wondered at the answer herself. Recovery? The presence asked, and all over the planet, displays lit up in Suriel's vision with diagrams of glowing ribbons of text. They marked artifacts of the Abaddon, lost over the millennia, matching them to last known locations and possible users. With a thought, Suriel declined. Education? Places of historical and cultural significance lit like beacons from the arches of Darien to the 12 rivers. Entertainment? Sky dancers, spinning on clouds of wind madra, trailed remnants like glowing streamers. An arrow pointed to a performance in progress on the other side of the planet. A play moved through the audience, actors in painted masks carrying prop daggers, sneaking around as though the viewers didn't exist. A duel between two experts, one riding a stag with lightning for antlers, another carrying a spear of solid flame. The life and death of a nation rode on this contest, but she could watch from safety like an interdimensional voyeur. Business? The presence asked, and though it was equally innocent, Suriel imagined an accusatory tinge to the construct's voice. Before she could stop it, details of Osriel's life spooled out on the spectral display, locations of interest blinking into being all over the planet. The mountain under which he had been born in a dark chamber of stone. The ruins of the library where he had once developed his own path. The pillars where he debated the 10 greatest scholars of the day, leading 3 to commit suicide soon after. The city of anvils, sealed now, where he'd forged his first weapons. The labyrinth where he died and returned to life.
The country home, buried beneath a meadow now, where his fury had first touched the way. Cyril wiped the display with a thought. She'd been a fool to come here in the first place. She was the phoenix, not the hound. The healer, not the detective. She didn't need to find Osriel. She needed to find his aftermath. The billions of a people affected by his refusal to do his job. Someone had to bring them back to life. But here she was, shirking her duties in the safest world of all creation. Even Sanctum was more likely to fall to corruption than this place. Cradle was the birth of the Abaddon. And theoretically, Osriel could cripple their organization for millennia by destroying it. But crippling them was never his goal. Machiel didn't understand that, but Suriel did. He would never return here, and he would not allow it to fall through his inaction. Of all the worlds she oversaw, this was the most secure. Then why are you here? The presence asked, sensing that Suriel needed another voice. From anyone else, the question would have been damning. She was a healer, the greatest in existence, and she was dallying on the way to a war zone. Thousands died in every second that passed here, but they remained dead long enough. Oh, if they remained dead long enough, even she couldn't bring them back to life. But he might be right. Osriel had done unconscionable things. That's a tough word. In the service of the Abaddon court. They were all in the name of order among the worlds, but anyone else would have been indicted for war crimes. Though she understood his rationale, she had never felt comfortable with Osriel on the job. Then he quit. Osriel, the celestial executioner, had refused to demolish condemned worlds. The Reaper had hung up his scythe, and other judges were out for blood, and they expected the same of her. But how could she blame him for not murdering billions? The corruption spread from his inactivity will affect trillions, her presence said, responding to her unspoken question. If it's not curtailed, then it will soon spread to tens of trillions until the court is forced to implement quarantine procedures. That was why Suriel delayed. Not because she didn't want to heal the dead and dying, but because the other 6 judges would have gathered together. They would want her to vote on a world-spanning quarantine that would leave dozens of worlds without the protection of the Abaddon. It was the exact attitude that had driven Osriel to leave. She needed a moment to think, here in a world outside of it all. A world that, though it was torn in an eternal thousand-sided war, existed in isolation. For her, that meant peace. Time to consider. Maybe she could solve some problems as a break from the cares of an entire universe. Problems, her presence acknowledged, and constellations of dots and lines spread all over the planet. Spooling text and images showed Suriel all the wounds she could heal, all the small problems she could fix while ignoring the larger troubles that overwhelmed her. Here, a monstrous eel undulated through the ocean, spreading clouds of poison over an underwater city. 10,000 kilometers away, a plague devastated a spire full of white-clad pacifists. On another hemisphere, a kilometers-long azure dragon flew on a violent storm, moving like a hurricane towards a small kingdom. The text showed her 10 million people she could save, from rape, murder, genocide, slavery, starvation, ignorance, disease. Osriel would try to save them all, and would fail, but the world would be better for his efforts. Machiel would leave those problems to mortals and focus on the bigger picture. As Suriel stared at the web of information spread out over the planet, trying to decide, another star flared to life. It was red rather than blue, representing a crime that was fated to happen. She focused on it. Imminent spatial violation, her presence reported. Domination of local inhabitants by an outside power is predetermined to follow. Someone who had grown beyond this world was trying to return to Cradle, using outside power to set up their own fiefdom in this relatively simple plane of existence. That was a grade 3 violation, something that the local sector control Abaddon would address, but they'd take their time about it. This level of crime was far beneath her notice, but both Osriel and Machiel would have agreed it was worth stopping. It was perfect. She took quick stock of her appearance to make sure that she wouldn't start any myths by descending. Transparent gray ghost lines ran from the back of her head, twisting down her right arm to terminate in her fingers. Those would be strange, but not alarming. The mantle of Suriel ran behind her like she'd tied a river of burning light around her neck. And she made that vanish. Her white uniform was seamless, a layer of inch-thick liquid armor that coated her from her neck down to her toes. It would be obviously unnatural, but shouldn't alarm anyone. They would assume it was forged Madra, which was close enough to the truth. She left it. She couldn't bring her weapon, though it pained her. The meter-long shaft of blue steel hung at her hip, innocuous enough, but she couldn't take the 1 in a billion chance that she might somehow leave it in Cradle. With an effort of will, she banished it back to Sanctum. Her long hair drifted around her, luminescent green and shining against the darkness of space. She toned it down to a deep shade of jade, barely distinguishable from black, then focused on her eyes. Her irises had expanded to take up most of her sclera, marked with a ring of symbols that a few people on this planet might recognize as script. They were tools to help her see the flow of fate, but they might advance the development of Cradle scripting beyond acceptable limits. Her eyes burned as though she'd pressed them against red-hot iron. But she endured, altering them to a roughly natural shape in a matter of seconds. They were still large and purple, but they looked human enough. Suriel's will flickered to the presence, which acknowledged her command. Plotting course to the fated violation. Destination, the Sacred Valley. Distance, 162,000 kilometers. Engaging route. In a streak of blue, Suriel took off. Alright, that's the end of chapter 6. Thoughts, concerns, compliments, snide remarks? You got no clue what is happening, but you like it? Do you want an explanation on what was happening, or are you just interested in the story? I will be going back and doing. Okay, so yeah, that was the finish of chapter 6. I will put a pause on talking about what just happened, and I'm gonna go back and do a gist of each chapter just to give everyone a little more information on what's going on. So, chapter 1 introduced the sacred arts and what's called the spiritual origin test. This tells people what they're good at and what path they will follow. Specifically, there are four disciplines. There are strikers, rulers, forgers, and enforcers. Each one has a different specialization in their path. Our main character, who we are following, Wei Shi Linden, was not granted one of these disciplines, and everyone believes that fate was not kind, and they marked him unsouled, which is not good at all. Um, he, children take this test at the age of 7, and They do it every year for those kids who are turning 7. Lyndon has retaken the test 17 times and still is unsold. So it ends with him realizing that he's not he did not get left off well with sacred arts. It moves into congratulations on getting third, Santi. It moves on to the second half of chapter 1, where um Lyndon is out in the forest looking for an ancestral orris tree. Orris trees are native to Sacred Valley, the place where this is all taking place. And um, he's looking for an ancestral orris tree, one that has gathered aura over centuries and is on the verge of advancing. He wants to find this tree because they can bear spirit fruits, which his mother, Wei Shi Seisha, wants him to find. So he goes and spends 3 days in the forest checking orris trees that might be on the verge of advancing into sacred uh, beasts, and he does find one, and it has a spirit fruit too. But he runs into one of the a group of coppers in his clan who don't like him very much. They are chasing, I guess, kinda, yeah. I have them in there just in case people want to make me do the workouts. Um, what was I saying? Uh, so Waymon Terrace, one of the members of the Mon family, comes upon Lyndon while chasing one of the white foxes of Sacred Valley, which is deemed illegal by the elders of the Wei clan. And so Lyndon gets picked on by Terrace for quote unquote scaring off their game that they've been chasing for a day and a night. So, in recompense, he notices that Lyndon is doing something with the tree, and he, in turn, hits and destroys the tree with his Madra because he's upset that Lyndon got in his way. This causes the tree to basically die, and its remnant, the power born from the soul after you die, the tree's remnant rises, uh, attacking Terrace, not killing Terrace, but definitely wounding him, and trying to attack Lyndon. But Lyndon uses strategy and tactics to stop the tree from killing him. While doing so, he notices that he can still get the spirit fruit, but he'd have to have his mother, who is a soulsmith. Soulsmiths use Madra to forge the soul into constructs and stuff like that. Um, if he can get both halves of the fruit, the remnant version and the physical version, he can have his mother repair it. He gets his arm broken by the tree while trying to climb it, but he does get the remnant fruit, and he gets the physical fruit from the broken tree, and then he heads home. That ends chapter 1. Chapter 2 starts with him in his home while his family looks at the fruit and argues on argues on who gets what of the fruit without including Lyndon, even though he went and got it. So they talk for a while, and they almost decide to cut it in thirds, giving one to his sister, one to his mother, and one to his father. But he speaks up, and he convinces them by his own hard work that he should get half of the fruit. So him and his sister, because his sister's close to advancing from copper to iron, uh, she takes half the fruit, and he takes half the fruit. They mention some side effects of it, like Lyndon mentions that it felt like he swallowed a thunderbolt. There's crackling, um, stuff like that. Then, continuing in chapter 2, I believe chapter 2 also contains. Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, was I wrong? Oh, no. Okay. So, chapter 1 was. The entire chapter 1 was. Oh, you are ad. I will wait a sec. Oh. Thank you for the follow, Santi. Uh, you're free from ads? Okay. I will continue that. So I just realized, all of chapter 1 was the spiritual origin test. Chapter 2 was the Oris tree stuff. Chapter 3 is Lyndon getting half the fruit, as well as going with Waymon Terrace to speak to the first elder about what happened earlier that day. With Lyndon getting sent up to Elder Whisper's tower to feed him as a punishment. Elder Whisper is one of the founding elders of the Wei clan from centuries past. He is a five-tailed snow fox who lives at the top of a very tall tower, and is locked up there by his own volition. He talks to Elder Whisper, and Elder Whisper tells Lyndon that he can start his own path. And that Lyndon is not fully stuck by the what's it called? Limitations that being an unsouled has. He just has to try a bit more. Welcome back from your alert, Lucy. How's it going? Chapter 4. He continues his talk with Elder Whisper. That's where a lot of it comes in, actually. He tells the story of what happened what happened with Terrace. Then Lyndon goes and heads home for the night. The next morning, bark, bark, woof, woof. Okay, yippee. Understandable. Yeah. So, what happens in chapter 4 is a lot of. Man, now I'm blanking. Lyndon finishes talking to Elder Whisper. He goes home and, he goes to work in the clan archives, where he finds. Or wait, no, am I still not thinking right? Oh, no. Okay. Sorry, guys. Chapter 4, he finishes with Elder Whisper. Then the next morning, he goes to cycle with the clan, for morning cycling, and he is challenged by Waymon Airy. And then he has to find a way to get to not lose the fight. So during his time working in the clan archives, he begins searching for something that he can use to finish to fight against Eri, finding the path of the what's it called? The Heart of Twin Stars. So he finds the Heart of Twin Stars technique manual in the archives, and that's where it led today with. Oh, you're gonna leave for now? Okay, I was gonna start chapter 7 real soon. I just was doing a gist of each chapter. Okay, see ya. I don't know how much longer I will be live for because I do need to eat to finish it. Well, I will eat in a little bit. I'm gonna read chapter 7 before. I'm probably gonna finish chapter 7 and then end stream because I need to I have something going on this afternoon and I need to eat. I will need to eat lunch before I go. Um, so food is good. I do agree with you, Lucy. Okay, see ya. I hope to see you next time. I will be back with another reading stream on Thursday. Next Thursday. Yeah, Lucy, go eat food. What are you doing? Eat food. So chapter 5. I'm gonna get some food now, but I will try to make it to the next stream. Okay. Then I will pause on the gist stuff. Actually, no, there's other people who need the gist. Oh, you're gonna listen to the recap first? Okay. I don't know what to eat. I don't know what you should eat either. But chapter 5 is Lyndon using the path of the technique manual of the Heart of Twin Stars to learn a new cycling technique that will be better than his foundation one. I don't know, I just like making noodles. Understandable. He trains with his sister, Kelsa, to learn the empty palm from the technique manual rather than using the Heart of Twin Stars. Because the Heart of Twin Stars is used to split your core in half. And he doesn't want to do that. So instead of focusing on the Heart of Twin Stars, he focuses on the empty palm that was talked about in the technique manual as well. So he learns the empty palm and he uses it against he takes it to the fight against Waymon Eri, but instead challenges Waymon Keth because it makes the Mon family look it makes him look better. It makes the Mon family look better if he concedes. And then everyone is fine. But it didn't turn out that way because he used the empty palm on Keth, and Keth got very angry because he got hit with something he didn't understand. Then he got hit again against the rules and was upset. So he tried to fight still, but got knocked down and punished by the first elder. That brings us to chapter 6, which you Android and Captain, I believe you guys were here around the halfway point of chapter 6. So chapter 6 starts with Lyndon and his father in his house talking about the fight that just happened, and then Duran talks Lyndon into going and getting a reward for what he did, and also for the upcoming festival tournament thing. So Lyndon goes to the first elder's house and negotiates getting a path manual because he's not allowed to learn a path normally. So he negotiates getting a path from the first elder by demonstrating his strength in the 7-year festival, going up against a copper. While he's still at the foundation stage. Then you were here for the second half of the chapter, so you were here for all of the stuff going on with Suriel. That leads us to chapter 7. You slightly understand what happened and I'm interested. That's awesome. I'm glad. I will probably read chapter 7 next Thursday. I will start off on a recap of chapter 7 and then continue on to chapter 8 and further. Hopefully next Thursday I won't have anything going on and I can spend more time reading. We will see though. I will drink some water. Thanks for coming in, Android. I hope you enjoy your food. I will surely enjoy mine. Once I eat, I will probably, once I finish this chapter, I'm going to go eat, and then I got to get ready to go do what I need to do. But yeah, okay, I'm going to start chapter 7. Chapter 7. Once the sling came off Lyndon's broken arm, he redoubled his training. The 7-year festival raced closer, looming over him, and he resented every minute of rest that might cost him his chance to read a path manual. Fun fact, don't explode. I don't plan on it. He still intended to find his own way in the sacred arts, as Elder Whisper had told him, but he didn't know enough yet. He needed to research the path of the White Fox. Once he did, well, maybe he would find that it fit him. Maybe he wouldn't need to explore a new path at all. He spent the mornings in the She family courtyard with Kelsa, where her beating him counted as training. Afternoons belonged to the archive, and he spent that time studying the other technique manuals to which he was allowed access. He never found anything else as perfectly suited for him as the empty palm, but he studied the theories. In the evening, he cycled. The cycling technique in the Heart Manual was intended to prepare him for splitting his core, which he never expected to need. Still, it was also a technique meant to improve pure Madra manipulation, and thus a better match for him than the Wei Clan's foundation technique, so he continued to use it. The Orris fruit treasure had long vanished, its power incorporated into his own, and he no longer felt the tingling lightning in his core. He felt no stronger, but his results spoke for themselves. He could practice with Kelsa for hours, using the empty palm 10 or 12 times before he gave in to fatigue, and that was due to his sister's relentless beatings more than spiritual exhaustion. 3 days before the festival, only a few hours before noon, Lyndon spotted an opening in his sister's stance. He took it, driving an empty palm at her belly. She knocked his wrist wide, stepping in to put a fist into his side, and froze, her elbow cocked back. Loose strands of her hair drifting in front of her face. Her eyes were fixed on something behind him, beyond him. And he knew at once something was wrong. "Kelsa?" he asked, taking a careful step back. She didn't respond, and if he couldn't hear her breaths, he wouldn't have known whether if she were still alive. In fact, she was still breathing in rhythm according to her foundation technique. Her eyes still glazed over. She folded up and sat on the grass. Her hands rested on her lap. Her breathing deepened, and tiny balls of foxfire began to dance in the air around her. When Lyndon realized what was happening, he ran for his parents. He found them together, outside their house, his father cleaning a boar as his mother did something similar to a remnant. A bucket of bloody guts sat next to a scripted basin containing loops of light and color. Claws of forged madra slowly fizzed into non-existence next to slabs of meat leaking blood. Lyndon skidded to a halt in the yard. Kelsa's advancing to iron, he announced, and then he ran back the other direction. His mother overtook him in seconds, and his father wasn't far behind her, hobbling on his cane faster than Lyndon could run. They both reached Kelsa before he did. Sweat already soaked her training robes, plastering her hair to her neck. Her breath came in labored gasps, and each exhale was tinged with white fox madra. Phantom images danced in the vital aura around her, complete with sounds, half-formed, unrecognizable ghosts that screamed, laughed, growled, and muttered as they were born of dreams and light. White fox madra swirled around her in a cyclone of illusion and color. Purple and white predominated, but every color flickered through, like bright-scaled fish flitting in and out of the light. Purple sparks twisted in the air, cast off Kilsa as though from a bonfire. Nearby, the underbrush rustled, and a snow fox peeked its snout out to watch. It was young. Only one tail trailed behind it in the bushes. But it was still drawn to the madra it sensed was so familiar to its own. According to legend, the First Way Patriarch's ascension to Jade had drawn snow foxes from all over Sacred Valley into a pilgrimage that lasted 3 days. Kelsa's eyes drifted closed and then snapped open, blazing with purple-edged light. All around her, vague dreams bloomed from the earth like squirming flowers. Second stage, his mother noted, scribbling as she watched. She might be as fast as I was, Duran said, a proud smile on his twisted lips. Copper to iron in less than an hour, and no worse for it. Then we should prepare for the third stage, Seisha said. Prepare? Not us, she said with a significant glance at Lyndon. You should leave, son. Excuse me. Lyndon rarely defied his parents, but this was an exceptional chance. He'd never seen anyone advance to iron before, and this was his sister. I'd learn more if I stayed out to the end. Too dangerous, Duran said, hobbling over to take him by the arm. Then a ripple of purple-white madra pulsed out from Kelsa, and Lyndon learned what his father meant. White Fox forgers use the fox mirror technique to create illusionary copies of exact appearance, but no real substance. Some built false walls, or hid in fake trees, or adopted the clothes of their enemies. Legend said the patriarch could create a twin of himself as indistinguishable as his own reflection. Enforcers kept their madra close, even inside, and White Fox enforcers deceived their opponents by hiding their steps or subtle movements in a skill called the foxtail. Their punches looked slightly longer than they were, their steps shorter, their motions faster, their reactions slower. In battle, where victory or defeat could ride on the accuracy of split-second judgments, enforcers of the Wei clan could be most frustrating enemies. Strikers cast their madra out to use on others, and White Fox strikers learned to manipulate foxfire. They could make a target feel like he was burning to death, or illuminate a target with only a spark they could see, or cloud an enemy's vision with phantom lights. The striker technique was considered the weakest on the path of the White Fox, but nonetheless it had certain advantages. Foxfire did no real damage, but it did inflict pain, and its purple and white flames could not be extinguished. Rulers worked differently. Rather than manipulating their own madra, they used their madra as a catalyst to control vital aura. As for rulers on the path of the White Fox, they directed aura of light and dreams to trap their enemies in a fox dream. As Kelsa's power flew out of control, Lyndon's vision fuzzed as though every surface crawled with ants. One of the nearby bushes seized the ground with one branch and hauled itself out of the earth. its exposed roots trailing dirt. It scooted towards him, blueless, pale blue cloudbells bobbing. Shadows giggled and whispered, flinching away when his gaze moved to them. They scuttled away in shy groups to spy on him from another angle. One of the clouds dipped down from the sky to look at him in the eye until his vision was filled with cottony white. Once it was pleased with whatever it saw in him, the cloud left on its merry journey. He recoiled after a single glance at his parents' faces. The scar at the side of his father's lip expanded until the man's face was one giant mass of tissue, pale and puckered. His mother's eyes glowed, and every word dropped from her lips like the weight of heaven's decree. The earth shook as she spoke, and Lyndon clapped his hands over his ears. When the earth righted itself, he found that he was curled up 50 feet away from where he'd started, and his hands weren't over his ears at all. They were contorted into claws, and his wrists were firmly pressed against his chest by his father. "You won't tear your eyes out now, will you?" Duran asked. Lyndon shook his head, too afraid to say anything. He had hated the times when Kelsa injected her Madra into him, but she hadn't ignited any vital aura then. His delusions had been much more detailed this time. Like an utterly convincing dream. Last time, shapes and colors had lurched around him till he couldn't tell where anything was. But this time, he had seen a plant uproot itself in full color, and now the cloudbell bush sat planted as solidly as ever. "Even you can develop a defense against this sort of thing." Oh, wrong person. "Even you can develop a defense against this sort of thing," Seisha said, though most of her attention was on her daughter. "Your spirit has supreme control inside your own body." Lyndon was very interested in learning more about that, but for now, one thing mattered more. How is she? It wasn't common, but there was always the possibility of disaster during advancement. When someone was interrupted while advancing, or tried to advance during a fight, or used elixirs to force an advancement early, they could end up facing a backlash. Their Madra could turn against them, killing them or removing their ability to practice the sacred arts. In that case, Kilsa might be no better than an Unsouled. Seisha leaned over her daughter, brown hair falling into the girl's face, and cast a clinical eye over her body. Kelsa was now lying in a heap on the grass, sweat-soaked but breathing evenly. She was streaked with grit like black mud, which gave off a stench that burned Lyndon's nose from yards away. Advancing to iron refined the body, expelling impurities. Seisha pressed 2 fingers to the girl's throat and then to her core. Kelsa groaned, stirring. "Did you do it?" John asked, leaning over her. In response, Kelsa reached out and gripped a young sapling with one hand. In one simple movement of her thumb, she snapped it in half. "Call the elders and break out the wine," Seisha said. "The Wei clan has a new iron." That same night, the clan turned out for a celebration in honor of Weishi Kelsa. Even some guests of the other 2 clans and 4 schools were in attendance, having arrived early for the festival. The patriarch presented her with her new badge in front of all the gathered families, and the first elder gave her a polished case containing a trio of valuable elixirs. They represented a significant expense for the clan, but the wise gambler bet on the fastest horse. Resources went to strengthen those who were already strong, not to bring up the weak. It was the way life worked, and Lyndon had no cause to complain. He might as well complain that the heavens hadn't given him a stronger soul. Instead, he looked forward. His sister was ready for the 7-year festival, and now it was his turn. Water. Okay. That night, Lyndon stuffed a shovel into his pack and prepared to cheat. The Way hosted the festival this year, an honor and responsibility that increased the pressure of the families to perform well. As a result, the clan's enforcers had been working for over a year to construct a brand new arena in which to display the contests. The arena was circular and made almost entirely of Oris wood, with one huge script edged around the inside to prevent power from spilling over into the audience. The seats were tiered in layers and separated by clan colors: purple and white for the Wei clan, green and gray for the Li clan, and brown and red for the Kazan. One higher box would contain guests from the four schools, separating them from the common rabble outside. The stage itself was a square of pure white stone 100 yards to a side, divided in 8 sections by lines in the floor. The Foundation children would use all of the sections at once, with 8 fights simultaneously until the number of participants was reduced. The Coppers would use a quarter of the stage each, the Irons half, and any pair of Jades who decided to settle a grudge or demonstrate their skill for the younger generation would have the whole stage for themselves. Outside the arena were 4 polished wooden columns, each ringed in script and topped by forged snow foxes. These 5-tailed white foxes, each an almost exact copy of Elder Whisper, paced on their columns or yawned or licked their paws just as live sacred beasts would have. They would be indistinguishable from life to every concept, from every sense except touch, which explained why they were elevated so far above the ground. If not quite famous in the Wei clan, Lyndon was at least known, and the guards allowed him inside on the pretext that he was checking a script for his mother. She had led the work on the 4 foxes, for which she was expecting a reward from the patriarch. Under the protection of his mother's name, Lyndon had a thorough look around, inspecting the stage, the columns, the seats, and especially the ground inside the arena. Oh yeah, welcome back, Jade. I am still reading. I'm probably going to finish this chapter, and then maybe, depending on how long chapter 8 is, I might continue reading. I might read chapter 8. But if it's a little too long, I'll probably end after this chapter. But yeah, welcome back, Jade. Then he walked into the woods. Oh, wait. You got to stay for all of chapter 5, right? Or did you have to leave halfway through? Okay, I'm just gonna keep reading. He carried a spirit map with him. His mother's analysis of the local remnants, and there were a few around here that might cooperate. When he reached a likely spot, he knelt down and scratched a script circle into the dirt around him. His skill as a scriptor had improved since he was a child, but only to the point where he wouldn't embarrass his mother by laying a simple layer of protection. At least, not while he was copying it from a book. Mount Samara loomed over the Wei clan to the east, lit by the massive halo of white light that they called Samara's ring. It glowed brighter than the moon, casting all of Sacred Valley in white, but the depths of the forest were still bathed in shadow. He had expected to use Samara's ring for enough light to read, but he had come prepared nonetheless, pulling a candle and a striker out of his pack. Seconds later, he squinted at his mother's scripting guide by candlelight. He could have used the scripting light in his pack, but he wanted his mother fresh to deal with the remnant. He smoothed out one symbol, correcting another, brushing pebbles and twigs aside to keep each rune as close to the guide as possible. After satisfying himself with that the circle was at least as secure as he could make it, he sat cross-legged in the center, book on one side and candle on the other. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Lucy. Very appreciated. Yummy water. Book on one side, candle on the other. Then he threw a rock at the hornet's nest. Hornets buzzed out an instant later, furious and seeking vengeance. But not living hornets. Remnants. They were made of bright emerald color, as though some artist had dipped their brush in a jar of green ink and painted them onto the world. But not in full detail. Rather than accurate depictions of hornets they'd been in real life, these remnants were mere sketches, outlines, swirls of lines and shape that somehow suggested hornets. The swarm flitted around Linden's circle, stingers at the ready. Script wasn't some magic language of the heavens, as old mythology suggested. Each rune was a shape that guided vital aura in the air, reshaping it to a new purpose. Thank you for the stretch, Lucy. I'll do that real quick. Good stretch. This particular circle was the reverse of the one he'd used on the remnant of the ancestral tree. It would catch and eject any Madra that attempted to cross the line. And remnants, while strange and powerful, were made entirely of Madra. The hornets could fly enough that the script circle would lose its effect, but they didn't. They stayed, either unaware that they could fly over, or intrigued enough to hear what the human had to say. Linden hoped it was the latter. For one thing, that suggested that these remnants were intelligent enough to hear him out, which meant they'd be less likely to flock through and sting him to death as soon as the circle dropped. The only way to judge a remnant's intelligence was through experience. The tree remnant, the newborn spirit of a plant, had displayed little intelligence at all. If this swarm was smart enough to wait on him, he could take a little risk. Linden held up the other object he'd brought inside the circle with him, a clay jar with a wide mouth and a tight-fitting lid. He opened the lid, showing the hornet remnants the shining blue crystal, barely the size of a child's fingernail, that lay within. At the sight of the crystal flask, the hornet's buzzing increased to a frantic pace. Honored sacred beasts, this one comes to you in humility, Linda began. They weren't sacred beasts any longer, but more respect was always better than less when it came to remnants. Or people, he supposed. In exchange for this offering of spirit, this one begs you to wait inside this vessel for only 3 days' time. Sacred artists typically filled flasks this size by the handful, but this one had taken him almost a week. It was the best he could do. Considering how little strength he started with, and how exhausted his spirit was after a day of training with Kelsa. The bright hornets buzzed frantically, pushing as close to the circle as they dared, hungering for the bare human power they sensed within. A few of the green sketched shapes got a little too close, and their own energy activated the script. Runes shone weakly, and an invisible force pushed them backwards. This circle could be overwhelmed, and would do precisely nothing against remnants with bodies bigger or more solid than these insects. But tonight it held. Can they understand me? Lyndon wondered. He cleared his throat and tried again. Honorable cousins of the hive, this one wonders if you would agree to rest inside this jar. In return, this one gives you an offering of a spirit. In only 3 days. Hi, Awa. Welcome in. You're not late at all. No way. But hi, how's it going? I'm pretty good. How am I? I'm doing pretty good. Um, you missed chapters 5 and 6, and we're on chapter 7. But after I finish this one, it looks like I'll have time to finish it, and then I can do a recap of chapters 5 of all three chapters, and then so that way you're caught up. But I do have something going on in about an hour and some, so I do have to end stream pretty quick after I finish that. All right, I'm going to continue. A buzzing interrupted him, forming a voice, harsh and monotone. Why? Lyndon's breath caught. He had hoped that they were intelligent enough to accept a crude barter. It had never occurred to him that they might speak. He bowed forward so deeply that his forehead pressed against the dirt, just shy of the script. He almost shivered, knowing that their emerald stingers were only inches from his scalp. But it would be disrespectful to show fear in front of this strange remnant, not to mention unwise. This one wishes to call upon you call upon your might before the sun sets 3 days hence. This one will break the jar, whereupon you will attack another human of my direction. Not this one, if it pleases you. One other. The buzzing dipped and rose as though the hive were trying to find the right pitch for the words. We take spirit rock. The flask. Of course, sacred ones, take it, drain it dry. It's it is yours. The hornets spun around in a dance, conferring with one another. Human Madra was more than mere food and water to remnants. They could advance with it, evolve, gain in wisdom, power, and concentration. He didn't care if they ascended to the heavens as long as they helped him. Agree, the hive responded. Lyndon hastily scuffed the nearest symbol with the heel of his foot, but fear punched him in the gut as soon as he did. In his eagerness to close, he hadn't specified anything about his current safety. They had agreed not to attack him once he released them, but nothing stopped them from plunging their stingers into him tonight. Abandoning dignity, he curled up into a ball as they swarmed past him and into the jar. He held arms over his face for a full minute or two, sweating before he realized that the buzzing had quieted. He glanced into the jar. A cluster of hornet remnants, like sketches of green paint, climbed all over each other at the bottom. The tiny flask was only visible as a faint twinkling of light, and as he watched, the light dimmed. A few of the closest remnants brightened visibly, gaining new details, as though here a new joint on a leg, there a new segment of carapace, as though they somehow grew more real before his eyes. He bowed once more to open his. He bowed once more to the open jar before carefully placing the lid on. As soon as they couldn't see him, he wiped sweat from his brow and sagged down in relief. Remnants weren't likely to kill him, not as long as he dealt with them in good faith. But they could very well have taught him a painful lesson. This one had been a gamble. Not a huge one, but one with a potentially uncomfortable downside. The wise gambler bets on the fastest horse. The Wakeland had taught him well. Eagerly, he wrapped a line of weighted shade silk around the jar. When tied, This held the lid, ensuring that an awkward misstep on his part wouldn't spill the hornets everywhere. The remnants could fly straight through the jar if they wished. A ring of script around the sides discouraged that. But if it was even weaker than the circle he'd used to protect him, but it was even weaker than the circle he'd used to protect himself earlier. They could push through it as easily as a man pushing through a screen. What really held them was their word. It wasn't as though remnants couldn't lie, but rather that they acted exactly according to their nature. For most, they simply wouldn't accept an unfavorable deal. It would never occur to them to accept it and then break it. Lyndon erased all evidence of the night's work in minutes, packing his gear up in his worn brown backpack. The jar of remnants went in last of all, carefully secured. It was most of 2 hours' hike back to the clan, but he hardly noticed the time. His chances had just doubled. He walked past the street that led to his rooms of instead he walked past the street that led to his rooms, instead heading back to the arena. The guards allowed him back in without further question, leaving no one to watch him. They were his family, if only distantly. They knew him. So no one saw as Lyndon took a shovel to the soft earth, digging straight down until he bared the sides of the stone blocks that made up the stage floor. When he got beneath them, he adjusted his angle, hollowing out a space under the block, a space just big enough for a sealed clay jar. He was sliding the jar into the open earth when his mother's voice sounded from behind him. Still practicing? All right. Well, that's the end of chapter 7. Awa, if you are still here, I will quickly, because I have some time before I need to get going, I will do a quick little recap of chapters 5 through 7. You heard the last little bit of chapter 7, but some other stuff happened. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay. So, where we ended off last time, Lyndon found um the technique manual for the Heart of Twin Stars, if you remember that. So, at the beginning of chapter 5, he he reads the text of it, and it teaches him a new cycling technique. But the cycling technique is supposed to prepare his core to be split in half, because the person who left it behind was was not able to fight against a technique that his rival used called the empty palm, which canceled out his Madra. So, Lyndon, not wanting to split his core in half at all, instead goes to his sister, and they start trying to learn the empty palm, so Lyndon can use it against his fight with Waymon Airy. While doing this, he gets a bad idea, and when it gets time for his fight against Airy, um, he is supposed to. He, instead of fighting Airy, challenges Waymon Keth, the head of the Mon family, to one hit each, where he uses the empty palm, cancels out Keth's Madra, but in fear of repercussion of canceling out his Madra, he strikes a second time, losing the duel. But people don't see that he lost. People saw that he won because he, technically speaking, beat an iron. So that leads us to chapter 6. Chapter 6, um, wait, hold on. Is that all of chapter 5? I might be missing something. That's chapter 4. No, yeah, so that is all of chapter 5. Okay. So chapter 6, it starts with Duran and Lyndon in his house talking about the fight, and Lyndon telling his father about the empty palm, all that kind of stuff, and Duran trying to find out what Lyndon's plan is to continue for the 7-year festival coming up. Um, he plans to use the empty palm to take out all of his foundation stage opponents. Um, and his father convinces him to go and try and get a reward out of the 7-year festival. So he goes to the first elder's house and convinces the elder that if he wins the exhibition match after the foundation fights, where he has to go up against a copper, if he wins, the elder will give him a copy of The Path of the White Fox. Uh, so after that, the second half of the chapter goes to um, a, a woman named Suriel entering into the world, um, and trying to figure out to escape everything going on. It explains that she is some sort of really powerful healer and that she's part of an organization outside of the world. So she's entering the world to get away from everything going on outside and finds uh, basically a violation that is fated to happen in Sacred Valley, which causes um, which causes her to head towards it. And that's basically all that happens in chapter 6. And then chapter 7 is Lyndon is going to. Oh, wait. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Chapter 7, Kelsa advances to Iron while practicing with Lyndon and training for the 7-year festival. Lyndon finds out what happens when you are too close to an Iron's advancement when you were too low, when you're not strong enough, and he goes crazy for a minute. Then, after she advances to Iron, this is kind of like a shorter chapter where Lyndon uh, watches his sister advance, and then he goes to basically cheat in the 7-year festival. That's what the remnants are for. So he goes out into the forest and finds the remnants, and as you were here for it, he convinces them to get in the jar and puts them underneath the arena to use against the copper fighter in the exhibition match. So that's where chapter 7 ends, and that's where the recap ends. And that is unfortunately where I'm gonna have to end stream for today. But I will be back. I'm thinking about making every Thursday book reading streams. So surely next Thursday I will be back with starting on chapter 8. But yeah, for those of you who have been here, I really hope you enjoyed chapter 5 through 7. They were a lot. I guess I did spend more time during the last one reading, so I can't really say that these chapters were necessarily longer. Some chapter 5 was pretty long, but I appreciate everyone being here. Um, and uh, should we rate out? Oh, you're making me do this now at the end of stream? What the? I gotta drink water.
Pardon. Okay. It was a good stream. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the book. Let me do my bark. Oh wow, it didn't want to come out. Whoa. Okay, hold on. Thank you for coming in, even if it was right at the end, Awa. I hope you enjoyed the end of chapter 7 and the recap that I gave. I hope that was helpful. Ew, that's so weird. I don't know why I can't do it right now. My voice must just be a little strained. That's okay. Um, Here, how's this? At the start of my next stream, Lucy, I will do a better one. Is that okay? Because I can't quite get it. I don't know why. Okay. I will hold myself to that. We are going to raid out. We'll probably raid out into Busty. For those of you who are not subbed, here is the raid message. And for those of you who are subbed, here is the sub raid message. It won't pop up in stream with the actual. Actually, why don't I do this? Copy and paste. There you go. There's the sub raid message. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming in today. I hope you enjoyed the book. I am certainly enjoying reading it. I will happily read more of it next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you probably Saturday. No, pardon, Saturday or Sunday with another stream. I don't know what exactly. Probably continuing Lovecraft because I need to do that. But I will be back on Saturday. Uh, all right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you guys.